Hello, this is Jess with her mood mentor, and today I am meeting with one of my one-to-one clients and PMDD rehab students, Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Alex is
It's very
here
good to see
to,
your face.
it's so good to see you. Alex is here to share her PMDD story with us and her inspiring symptom transformation. We know how difficult it is to live with PMDD, and it's so exciting to hear from others in our community who have changed their stories. So thank you for being here and sharing with us, Alex.
No problem. That's how I came here, because I saw someone else do it. So I feel like I'm paying it back.
Oh, yay. So exciting. So let's just start from the beginning. When did
Mhm.
you, do you think these PMDD symptoms began or entered your life?
I think they probably started pretty soon after I went through puberty. I had a pretty tough time at school, and I got bullied and stuff. And I think that was one of the things that played into it. And I remember, when I look back, I can see how my mood and my kind of behavior would oscillate quite a lot through that time. And in fact, I've spoken to someone that I was at school with, and one thing she said about with me was like, you never know what you were going to get. Which but at the time wasn't really aware of it. I was so kind of wrapped up in, it's being a teenager and and everything like that, and it's just carried on. And I think through different points in my life since then, there were peaks and troughs with it, but there were probably more peaks than there were troughs, and some very messy stuff went on in that time.
Yeah. So we're talking decades,
Yeah, yeah. So I
like
came to
three
you
to
when I was
four decades.
44. So so
Yeah.
yeah, 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So of living with these symptoms. Now, can you paint a picture for us what the symptoms were? Because we hear, oh, PMDD, we hear a mood disorder, but we don't really understand unless we're living with this, which probably most living with it, which probably most people who are watching this are living with it. But
Mm.
let's describe what that looked like for you. What were the symptoms? How were they impacting your life over that 30-year period?
I got quite a lot of the physical ones, so I'd get sort of soreness in my body, like down to individual finger joints would be sore in the kind of week, 10 days, sometimes longer. This is before. And I'd get like massive fatigue to the point that I'd spend sort of whole weekends just lying on the sofa trying to recover from putting my all into the week. And that was kind of the physical stuff, which is almost like easier to manage. But I had an awful lot of psychological symptoms as well. I'm very irritable. I could get very angry, like very hyped up about stuff, like fuming kind of anger. That would be something that would kind of come in. I'd get like my earlier symptoms, the psychological ones would the ones that would creep in. I'm like, oh, here we go. Would be the anger, and the sort of body dysmorphia would come in. And then I'd kind of go like start slipping down into quite a rapid depression. That would get really deep. I would start thinking that nobody liked me. I'd get really kind of paranoid stuff, like people were really judging me. And it would just kind of spiral into itself. Um, I, yeah, I would also at some peak points, I would kind of go into a psychosis where something would happen and I would kind of flip out, and then I could see myself flipping out and like wanting to stop it, but there was nothing I could do about it. And it was like I could just watch myself exploding things all over the place. And that would go on for days at a time. I'd like either withdraw as much as I could so that people just never witnessed it. I managed to go like probably 30 years without people ever really witnessing it. I'd hide a lot. Um, and then if anybody did witness it in it to any degree, just the shame that I would get from that would just compound everything. So I'd, yeah, end up in this situation where everything was terrible. I felt terrible physically, mentally, just exhausted. And then I get my period. And then about 3 days later, I start feeling better. And I'm like, oh, who was that? But then there was this whole sort of bomb crater behind me that I had to fix, which would then take me into another sort of phase of feeling pretty terrible. And then I'd get maybe like 4 days where I felt like, oh, this is who I am. And then it would start again. So it was, yeah, debilitating, massively debilitating. It wasn't, I think looking back, it wasn't that bad every single month. But it definitely built over time, and there were some really quite extraordinary periods of it being very bad. I think I feel it was remarkable that I managed to hold my life together as much as I have done in hindsight. But yeah, massive impact. There's so many, like I left jobs, I, left relationships, I destroyed relationships, like friends gave up on me. I would give up on friendships because I would be paranoid about them, like, just all those things over such a long period of time.
Mm. Such a lonely and confusing way to live our lives, right? We're trying to
Mm,
protect those from us, from the chaos that's ensuing that we don't
yeah,
understand. And in that isolation, we suffer more. I mean, it gets in the way of you working towards goals, of working towards
yeah.
relationships. You don't
Yeah.
know what's going to come next. And there's so
Mm,
much hiding and guilt and shame wrapped up in that. And then it's
yeah.
just a perpetuating cycle. And the confusion of, oh, I feel this is me. This is who I am now.
Yeah.
And then the light
Yeah.
switch flips, and then you're back in this dark, devastating
Yeah.
place.
It was so confusing. And I felt always that it wasn't me. I always felt like it wasn't me. It was like something that lived inside me and came out, like Sigourney Weaver, like busting out my chest. It was just
Yeah.
not, I knew it wasn't me, but I didn't really know what it was. And, through that time, just so many appointments and interventions and ways of trying to address it, and misdiagnoses, like multiple misdiagnoses, um, immense amounts of gaslighting, just the ordeal of knowing that something is really wrong and trying to find out what and then to get better. It was, that is a relentless thing. It was a part-time job. I went for I did work full time I went through uni, worked full time, and the last time I worked full time was in about 2012, 2013. So I haven't worked full time since then, because it just kind of got worse and worse. And I think going into my 30s, and kind of the impact, because it is traumatizing in itself. So it just feeds itself. It's a self-perpetuating situation. Plus, I think then tipping into kind of perimenopausal stuff. Um, it's really exacerbated things too through my 30s. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, and something about everyone's story is so different, but something about your story that really stood out to me when we first met was you knew something was wrong. Like a lot of us are just like, what's happening? And you can kind of be in denial, and you do a lot of self-medicating. You were actively
Mm.
seeking out answers and
Yeah.
treatments and remedies. So tell us a little bit about what that looked like over that 30-year period. Like, what did you
Mm.
try? Who did you reach out for support? What was
Mm.
the outcome? Because you were very active in making this not be the way that it was for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It took a lot of took a lot of energy. It takes so much energy. But I kind of that feeling of it not being me, because I would get those few days and I was like, this feels like me. Like, and I liked that me. And I remember someone trying to suggest to me that maybe that was me being like manic. And I'm like, no, no, actually I reject that, and that was like a friend was telling me that maybe this is you just a bit high on life. And I'm like, no, actually, that felt really real. And that was a very hard thing to like try to hold on to. And I think that just believing that little bit of me was actually me was kind of the fuel for keeping going the whole time. Because I mean, this started trying to resolve or figure out or get to the bottom of anything. um it started in my 20s, like early 20s. There were a couple of periods of me being signed off work, kind of having time out because I was quite depressed and I was really struggling. But then I would always get, to the end of the 2 weeks that I've been like, well, I feel fine now, I just want to go back to work. And everyone would look at me like, well, what was wrong with you? You seem fine. And obviously, in hindsight, that was just like probably a particularly deep cycle. So it almost seemed like a pattern of like every 3 months I would get a particularly bad one. Although I was still having them, it was a weird sort of thing. And through my 20s, oh God. So the peak thing that happened when I was about 25, 26. No, a little bit later than that. Anyway, in my mid to late 20s, I actually had episodes, like 2 episodes in a week of stress-induced anaphylaxis, or it turned out to be stress-induced, because I ended up in the emergency department like twice in a week with like a face like a balloon, and like couldn't swallow, and all this stuff was happening, and I got sent for all these tests, and the conclusion was that my system was really stressed, and at that point, funnily enough, a couple of weeks before that, I'd gone to counselling for the first ever time because things were not good. And I was really struggling at work and everything felt really hard. And I was looking at everybody else seemingly kind of getting on with things and not really struggling. And I think that sort of opened up to like everything just started spilling. And my body just went, okay, we can't handle this. We need to step out of life because I was still working really hard. And I ended up with a few weeks off work after that. And that really was then I went into kind of having um, much. So I was seeing like a clinical psychologist level of therapy. I had a psychiatrist. I was being prescribed lots of different types of mental health medication. And that then was when things started. So I then had about 10 years. So yeah, I went through all of that. At one point I did get like my psychiatrist was actually really good. She tried everything. She's like, this isn't working. I think maybe it's something hormonal. Sent me to possibly the worst gynecologist in the world. Um, he was an awful person. He's dead now, so no libel. And but he kind of just dismissed everything, did the whole like, oh, you'll feel better if you get a boyfriend and have more sex kind of thing. And I found that so that kind of attitude. It was the first time I kind of experienced sort of medical trauma, but I didn't really know what it was at the time, and I found it horrible to be there. I just went into a kind of anxiety attack, like I just had to get out, and I disengaged from the process then. So that was in my really early 30s. And then through that, sort of the next, I don't know, like 8 years, I just kept trying and kept trying. I finally found like we call them GPs here, like your kind of standard, you go and see family doctor kind of person. And she was really nice. And I worked with her and we were going through like, have I got some kind of vitamin deficiency? We're testing lots of those. I was having loads of kind of invasive gynecological things as well. We're trying all different pills, like everything, trying more mental health drugs. I went to more therapists, lots and lots of stuff. It's probably even things that I can't remember. Like I've got medical files, like 2 medical files this big of just all of the notes from that time, trying to get to the bottom of it. And then it all kind of started coming together when I was about 36 and a friend of mine was like, I've heard of this thing and maybe it seems relevant to you and it's PMDD. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is it. So I started reading around it, but I didn't know where to go with that. And it seemed like this kind of, kind of new sort of hokey idea. This is probably about like 2016, 2017, maybe. And then eventually, because I was living in London at the time, and I found by Googling, purely by Googling, that there was a specialist clinic for PMDD in London, and I got my GP to refer me, and I went there, and this was like 2019, so I was 40 in 2019. This is a couple of months after I turned 40, and I went to that appointment and they had like specialist GP that I spoke to there. And it was the first person I'd spoken to who was like, yeah, this is what it is. And it was within like 20 minutes, having gone through like 20 years of wondering what the hell was wrong with me, 20 minutes. And I found out that that's what it was. She just confirmed it. So I had a diagnosis. But obviously 2019, it was just before the pandemic. So getting like care after that was not the easiest thing. And I started on their kind of protocols of like, here are different things you can try. I told them about things we tried before, so I didn't have to go through trying pills and oh no, I did. Oh God, they put me on one more kind of pill. That I ended up suicidal for 17 days in a row because suicidality, I should have said earlier, was part of what I experienced. Like things would get that bad. And I stopped that. But it was also this thing of I was saying to them, this is how terrible I feel. Should I stop them? Will it get better? And they were like, well, it's up to you. And I'm like, yeah, I just need someone to help me, tell me what this is. Like, is it going to get better? Do you know of people that it gets better? Shall I, persevere? But anyway, I stopped that. And then obviously the pandemic came, so I couldn't carry on attending that clinic. And then I moved away from London, and then entered a service where I am now, which was diabolical and had just, I went on the Zoladex. They're called like the GnRH. I get all the letters around the wrong way, but those the shots they give you, the little horrible, painful pellets that like shut all your hormones down, and then here's some estrogen patches. So I went through a test of that because it's supposed to like confirm it, and then um
Chemical
you
menopause.
can have a
Chemical
hyster
menopause.
yeah, chemical menopause, yeah, and then you can, if that works, then you can have the hysterectomy. That was the plan. And I went through one round of that, but it was so badly administrated. I wasn't given any estrogen ad back that I went into really severe estrogen withdrawal. And I was just like off the wall, like I was crazy. And I felt terrible. I had like real bad vision problems. I was falling over all the time. Like I had pain through my body. Like my back was in so much pain because I didn't have enough estrogen because they left me without anything for 3, 4 months. So I then asked to see a different doctor, and they kind of, I mean, throughout this whole thing, they've never admitted they've done anything awry. But he was like, "Oh, I want to run my own experiments." So I had to go through it again, and it was really rough for me. And all I could find were like, and all they would talk to me about were examples of this treatment being really effective, and it's the only way to prove that you've got this. And actually, with the second time I went, which I've now subsequently done my own research and found out that if you go back to Zoladex, you can actually have far more severe side effects. And I did. I didn't stop cycling. I had a cycle throughout the whole thing, but it was 7 weeks long and it was absolutely brutal. So I was on the first time I was on it for 6 months, the second time I was on it for 7 months. And I just kept hoping it would get better. And it was, it was an absolutely terrible time in my life. It was just so traumatizing. And it was also a time when I was getting some of the worst gaslighting because I was having these hideous symptoms, these hideous periods. The gynecologist was refusing to accept that I could be having a cycle, and he was kind of like, well, because I was having really severe psychosis and I was just collapsing the whole time. I don't even know how I managed to get through work. I couldn't even think. I was like so tired all the time, like massive fatigue, loads of pain. When the periods came, they were like, it was like someone had been murdered. It was just so bloody, like horrendous. And the psychological symptoms were really extreme. I was having quite a lot of psychosis, just completely like hair trigger, like every single day, and like
For
crying a
months.
lot. Just
Months.
months,
Like
months and months of
two,
this.
yeah, like oh so how
Yeah,
many
it
you
was
said like
like,
7 months and like 9 months or something? Like
yeah, and there was only a few months gap between.
oh.
So it was like 18 months of it. And his response to my description of like being honest about my psychological symptoms was to send me to the psychiatrist. So treating me like I was crazy. And when I went into the psychiatrist, I took all my medical notes and I told him, I was like, do you know what PMDD is? Because I'm going to explain it to you. And went through all this stuff. And he was like, yeah, you don't need to be here. This isn't my remit. Like, you shouldn't be
Mm.
here. And I came out of that and it kind of gave me a bit of confidence to be like, this is not working for me. But I was already on the list for the hysterectomy because he was like, oh, we'll just do that. And I got a call for the operation. They had like a cancellation. They were like, do you want to come in like a week? And I just went, no, I don't. And the thought of that man putting his hands anywhere near me when he didn't even believe that I was having these experiences, I was like, I can't. So I completely disengaged. And that was in about May, June time last year. So only about 18 months ago. And um I did think, well, what the hell am I going to do? I was like, well, I'm 44 now. I've probably got like 10 years to just, white knuckle it through the next 10 years and then it will just stop and leave me alone. And I was like, I didn't really want my life to be like, wishing with a menopause, but I guess that's where I am. And then at that time, it just one of those sort of serendipitous moments of you popped up on my Instagram as like some kind of, I don't know, algorithmic thing, because I'd followed a couple of like PMDD things. And I just thought, well, I've tried everything else. Maybe I'll just give a load of money to some stranger in America and it'll be fine. And then my life changed. So yeah, that's how I got to you.
Mm. The algorithm led us together. It is magical in that way. That's how so many of my clients come to me. Um, so it was basically desperation that motivates you to work with me. Like you had literally
Yeah,
tried everything that
everything,
you
everything.
could.
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
there's a single thing I hadn't tried before that. Yeah.
mm, mm. And you really, I remember when we started working together. So we started working together at the end of October in
Mm.
2023. It is now November 2024,
Yes.
which is so magical. We'll get into that, the fact that we're having this conversation a year later. But moving into this approach, there was a lot from you, a lot of trust in my
Mm.
process, right? Because you
Mm.
were just like, what do I have to lose at this point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which was so beautiful to see you still having hope after
Yeah.
everything you had been through. The fact that you showed up, you entered the program, you gave it your all after,
Mm.
the medical
Going through
trauma that
that.
you went through, and
Yeah.
then just years of living, 20
Mm.
extra years of living with this undiagnosed and misdiagnosed.
Mm.
That is, let's just take a moment, Alex. That is so inspiring. The
I
women that
know,
I
it's
work
just
with, so
as you're
inspiring.
saying that, it's kind of because the weird thing is like one of the symptoms is like severe lack of hope, severe hopelessness. And I would get that severe loneliness. Like, I would feel that like I am so alone, I'm so powerless, like there is nothing I could do. And I think that's why I always felt like this isn't me, because I've weirdly looking back, like I always thought I was like a very real pessimist and like a real hopeless person, but actually I wasn't. Like I always, I've always believed that things can be better. And that, applies to the work I do, but it obviously applies to the way I felt about my life. Like I just thought this is not right. And I kind of, there was enough of a kernel of my good self in there to be like, that's how I can be. And, yeah, it is quite astonishing that I could keep going for that long. Like sometimes I'm like, if I'd known what was going to happen, I would be like, no, 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 we're not doing this. So yeah, I'm quite proud of the fact that I've made it through all that. And I just
Yeah.
hope nobody else has to take it for that long.
Yeah. Well, in your story, I mean, we're only getting into it now, but is so inspiring after everything you have been through, and then in comparison to what this last year of your life has looked like after
Yeah.
the process, the mysterious process. So let's talk a little bit about how you
Hmm.
have more, wow, I'm stuttering. I'm so excited. I can't even talk. Um, I've worked with thousands of clients, okay, dealing with this. You have the unique experience of trying more things than the majority of them. Very few of my clients have
Mm.
taken the chemical menopause route en
Yeah.
route for orthorectomy and then
Mm.
come to me, right?
Mm.
That is unique. So you have a wider pool of wisdom to pull from in the
Mm.
experience of taking the approach that we took versus taking the Western medicine approach. What was different? Like, how did this process land different for you? What changed as we took this
Mm.
approach in comparison to the other approach? Like, kind of, it's not a
Yeah.
super clear question, but do you see
No,
my?
I totally get it, because there were things that I did, but that helped for sure. But I think an absolutely massive part of the change was how we did it. That the approach was so key to it. And it's kind of, I think, just finally being somewhere where, like in an environment where somebody completely understood. There was like zero judgment. You weren't like waiting to show me everything you knew. You were, it was, I'd never really understood symptoms as information. They'd been punishment for such a long time, such a long time. And, they, they felt bad. And really, you know, you completely reframed my view of that, of like, actually, it's just my body trying to tell me something. And that was really important, as was like actually being listened to by somebody who understood and being listened to. But also that it was, you know, here are some things we can try. What sounds good to you? Like that kind of choice about what happened. And everything that, you know, was given to me was given to me. It wasn't like, I'll give this to you now, and then you have to come back, and you have to come back, and you have to keep dealing with me. In, you know, in between, you just got to wait. You know, it was always just waiting to see what happened, if this worked, if I felt better. Whereas with you, it was like, here's something that every day I'm doing something for myself. You've given me choice about what I choose, you know, what I do, um, sort of day to day. When we next talk, what are we going to, you know, it was just choice and options and all in my hands, and not in a way that felt like overbearing responsibility, because there's a lot, you know, just going through the process of 30 years of trying to get an answer is a huge responsibility. But it didn't feel like that. It was like a control. It was control. And I'd never been given control before. I'd never been given power to help myself. It was always, come to an appointment with me and I'll tell you how I'm going to do that to you. And it was, you know, completely the other way around. And that was so helpful, because I'd got so stuck in this horrible kind of spiral, this medical trauma spiral. And I was so relieved to completely step out of that and be in a very different feeling environment. I think that was really, really important.
Mm. I never know what people are going to say when we ask, you know, when I ask these questions, and so interesting to hear the different perspectives. But speaking to that direct approach versus the collaborative approach, when we are working within the Western medicine system, and I'm not bashing Western medicine here. There's absolutely a place for it. Love it. Like super helpful for a lot of things, but it takes a directive approach where I am the practitioner. Listen to me. I am telling you what to do based on my expertise. And there isn't a personalization aspect to it. I'm trained to do a certain thing.
Yeah.
I do the thing I'm trained to do. In integrative medicine, we take a collaborative approach, and especially in the coaching process that we work through, where I don't know your body, Alex, I don't know your life. I'm working to know it, and I'm working with you to understand how we can take all of my knowledge and take all of my approaches and find the right ones for you and fit them into your life. But I can't come to you and say what that's going to be. That's just, we're both wasting our time here, because we all live very different in very different bodies and live very different lives. And so the triggers and the drivers to our symptoms are all different. And so that personalized approach and taking that collaborative approach, which is so much more fun and so much more nurturing. And it's one of the reasons why we got on this call and I was just down to business, because I was like, I just want to cry and scream and just wiggle and flail my arms and dance. And so I'm so excited to see you, because over this 3 to 4 month process, like, we become very close, right?
Yeah.
I'm there with you the whole time. We are working to change your life. And that it's just it's incomparable to the relationship of you get with a
Yeah.
directive approach.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you brought that up, that was
Yeah.
the
And it was also, I remember that we had one appointment. I think it was only maybe like I don't think it was even halfway through. I think it was like 3 appointments in, maybe like, you know, a third of the way through. And I'd had a really, really bad day. And I came on and I was like, oh, I was like really messy. I was like symptomatic. So yeah, it wasn't even that far in. Um, and uh and I'd like been driving and something got in my eye, and like I had to stop, and it was, I couldn't get it out, and I was trying to get somewhere, and it was just like everything, you know, it's one of those things where it's not really that big a deal, but it just turned into like the world's biggest deal, and it ruined my whole day. And I came onto the call with you that night and I was all like, oh, I don't even know if I can do the call, I'm just such a mess, blah, blah. And I was, you know, it was like, what we're going to do. And we had this plan of what we were going to do in the appointment. And you just went, let's not do that. Like, you could see that I needed something completely different. And you gave me like 3 options of things that we could do. And one of them was like a visualization, which I'd never done before. And I was like, I've never done this. It feels a bit wacky to me, but like right now, I guess I just need to do something different. And we did that. And that was like a really pivotal moment. And I think it was something that really showed me the power of my own mind, but in a positive way. And I've been so stuck in this power of my mind in a negative way. And I love that it was the trusted friend kind of, I can't remember the name of the visualization, but you have your little
Yeah.
pal and they tell
Guided
you something
imagery.
and actually it's you. And yeah, I love that one. And I still do that myself. And yeah, that it was just, it went from like, I was, a sort of jittering mess at the beginning of that to just feeling calmer than I'd felt in years at the end of it. And it was because you could see that's what I needed. And if it had been a standard medical appointment, it would have been, well, here's the plan. We've made the plan. We're not going to deviate from the plan. And it was just like, I can see that you do not need the plan right now. You need something else. Having that sort of flexibility is that mattered so much in that moment. And after that experience, like everything just started shifting and clicking into a completely different way. And that was, yeah, if I had to pick one moment, that was the start of everything changing like really significantly. And it's weird because I would not have thought that. And I was not a visualization person, I was like, oh, that's weird. But now I'm like, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the process it's very mysterious. I was joking about it earlier, but yes, I have a framework, a trusted and a true framework that I have been able to apply to all of my one-to-one work. But the reality is that we all, again, different biology, different lifestyle. And so I can't come to you and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it at this pace. We're going to do everything in this regimented way, because our nervous systems can't handle that. We hit our upper limit and we start to self-sabotage. And we have self-sabotaged enough, right, Alex? And so I
Yeah.
tell my clients
Yeah.
over and over, I'm not here to waste your time. You're not here to waste my time. You want to change your life? Let's go. I can help you do that, right? But if you're not ready to step into that place, you're not ready for this. And it's scary because we're both like, is this going to work? Like, I go into these sessions
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know if I can help anyone. Yes, I have this framework, but like, there are a lot of days where I sit up here in the same seat with my giant water bottle every day for 7 hours a day, helping people heal this. And I'm like, I don't know if I can help anyone. Like, I don't know. But the magic of the process is showing up and hearing the person and just pulling from what I have to give back. And
Yeah.
we both had to enter into that collaborative relationship, trusting the unknown. Like
Yeah.
I am extremely confident that I can help you reduce and manage your symptoms. Like, no doubt. I can help you do that, but I can't do it for you. So that's where the collaboration comes in, and I have to trust that you're going to trust me and I'm going to trust you to show up and we're going to do the thing. But we don't really know how it's going to unfold because of the hundreds of one-to-one clients I've worked with, it hasn't unfolded in the exact same way every time. And that's
No.
what keeps me going because, like I said, when I ask these questions, I don't know what you're going to say. When I work in the approach with you, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's fun and exciting to
Yeah.
see what happens for
Yeah.
people. So let's talk about that next. What happened for you? Like when we started, you were reporting, we were mapping, because we do a lot of data here. We were mapping 10 to 14 days of moderate to severe
Yeah.
symptoms. You were talking about bloating, insomnia, fatigue, severe psychological symptoms, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, things like this.
Yeah.
Um, what started to change over the course of the coming months?
Um, yeah, it was pretty quick because we were doing the mapping at the start, and I had a lot of kind of severe days, filling in the little spreadsheet, and I'd already sort of started tweaking my diet before we spoke, and then you made more suggestions, and I went on the supplements, and I definitely think that helped on the kind of physical side of things for sure. Um, and and then we had, I had that episode, and then we had the little visualization thing, and things started tweaking. But I think it just sent my brain into a completely different place. I think it took me to that sort of positive place I needed to be. And like, I can do this and I'm doing things and it's helping. And my symptoms are information. And it really was like pretty quick after that. And I feel almost like, it's really hard to describe it because it had been so bad for so long, so long. And I thought, well, I'm going to come to you and we're going to work on it. And this maybe is going to take like years, but I'll feel better gradually. And it really was like 6 weeks, I think, after we started talking, I was filling in I was filling in my day to day, I was filling in my symptom tracker, and I just wasn't using the severe color anymore. It just wasn't, there wasn't anything. And there were, it would be like a blip of like, oh, here's a, here's the moderate one. And it was all just like by the end of the year, by Christmas, it was just pretty much, nothing. There was really low grade over a relatively short period of time. Like my period became really regular, which it hadn't been. It sort of was, and then it would go like a 3 week. I was having like 3 week ones, and like coming off the chemical menopause was just messy as well. It was like, all over the place. And it just started going like 28, 29 days, boom, 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 like really regular. And I could say, well, this is a week before, so I just watch out now, and I won't drink coffee, and like, just knew the things that I could do. And honestly, I think it was from about December until today, I could probably count the severe days I've had on maybe one hand, pushing into two, and that's it. And those have been because of very particular circumstances. Like I've been really stressed in a situation, something's been really on top of me. Like I could see from the work that that we went through around like what matters in my life, what's having an impact on me, those areas of your life that you take people through, like what my really kind of push points were. And I could then see, well, obviously I'm feeling a bit rubbish today because I've got a lot on in this sphere, or this thing has happened, or I've had to deal with this situation. And it stopped me going into that kind of spiral of like fear of my symptoms, like that I'm about to get punished by these things. It's like, oh, my body's trying to tell me, like, take it a bit easy, like maybe just don't drink the coffee today. And yeah, really honestly, it's from about December, I just got to a point, like, I think because I went away quite a chunk of January, and then we came back together towards February, and that was the end of our time working together. And by then, I just had stopped registering anything more than kind of mild symptoms. And I feel like basically, even though there have been a couple of days where I've had some not great times, and nothing like they used to be, they're really isolated. And to be honest, I just class it as PMS. Like I don't have PMDD anymore. And I remember having a conversation probably about 3 or 4 months ago with someone where I was just like, well, I'm just not a chronically ill person anymore. And I was like, I'm just not sick anymore. And it was kind of like it was coming out my mouth, and I was like, yeah, that's actually true. Like I spent so long with this kind of identity of being chronically ill. And I don't feel like I'm a sick person anymore. It's completely different.
Like speechless, no words. Oh my gosh, I'm almost falling over out of my chair. And it's been a year. We started in
Mm,
October of 23. It's November of 24. And you're saying
mm.
not only did you reduce the duration of symptoms,
Yeah, yeah,
like
massively, yeah.
crazy, you reduce the severity of symptoms. Not only that,
Yeah,
you're saying now, a year later,
yeah.
like it's not PMDD. I'm not experiencing the severity to fall in the PMDD
No,
category. And not only that, I'm just not chronically ill anymore.
no, no, I'm not. I just
Keep it
yeah, I
together.
just
Keep it
don't.
together.
Yeah, I don't feel like that person. And if, it's like, it's almost like when you asked me at the beginning to describe what it was like, it's almost like I can't remember it because it just feels like a different lifetime. It's really hard to remember those feelings, which I'm so glad of because I'd be thrown into them so much of the time. And I can call them back and I can remember some times. And I kept diaries through a lot of it, and I've gone back to them for the first time. And my God, some of that stuff is so bleak, so dark, like really just like awful, like how I was. Like I can't believe in some ways that I survived it. Like it was horrific. But although I know that's me and I don't unidentify with that, it's just not my life now. And I am me now. Like I never got to be this person. And now I am because of you.
It's not just because of me though. Like we did it together. You showed up.
Yeah.
It's so great to hear that I helped make such an impact on your. I mean, it's just incredible.
Mm,
But it was both of us. Like we both showed up for you, and it changed
mm,
the entire course of your life
yeah.
because you held out just a little bit of hope to try one more thing.
Yeah. And I really didn't think that with someone who experienced it for so long and so deeply that it could happen at all, let alone as quickly as it did. And it seems, just inexplicable, really. And if I'd watched this, because I watched a video with someone before I signed up to work with you. And I was like, well, if I could just have a little bit of that, that would be good. But is there still a part of you that's like, oh, maybe she's paid and, maybe she's an actress and it's all fake, and if I'd seen me talking about this like a year ago, I would not have believed. I just would have thought it was made up. But honestly, it like, if it can give somebody hope that it can happen, and maybe it's not as quick for other people and maybe it won't be as different, but to be honest, if you can like 10% off what I was having, that would have been enough, and I'm glad I didn't have to wait till for another decade till my period stopped completely to actually get my life back. But I've lost a lot along the way. I really have. But I'm kind of so determined not to lose anymore. You know,
Yeah.
I'm here to do stuff now. And I never felt like plans were for me, and I get to make plans, and I've got like so many ideas, and I've been doing loads of things. Like I've done like a playwriting course and like all sorts of things that I just couldn't before. I get out of the bed in the morning, go for a walk at like 6:30 in the morning, and that was not something I could do. So yeah,
You're
it's
living a
different.
completely different life. And I remember you reaching out to me saying, like, I really want to share my story, but I'm living for the first time and I just need to be with this for a
I didn't
moment
have time.
because, yeah, I need to like
Yeah,
live my life for the
yeah.
first time since I
And there
was.
was, and I remember when we kind of wrapped up, and you said to me like just a couple of things. Like one of them is like your symptoms can come back, and not to worry, and not to get too pulled in by that, and just acknowledge them, and then the other thing was like at some point grief will hit, and it did, and I did go through a kind of grief phase, and it's something like that makes you really rattled because you're like, oh my god, is this symptoms, is it symptoms? And then I was like, actually no, I'm just really sad about everything that I did lose. And then, I gave myself the space for that, and I got to have the space because I wasn't being bombarded by other illness type stuff.
Yeah.
And I went through that, and I'm actually just, I've been really busy being me, and yeah, that's why it's kind of taken a while because I just want to have that space, and it's a weird thing, and it's something I'm sort of in that phase now, and it's going to carry on for a little while of reconciling being myself. Like what does it mean to live a life? Because it was a part-time job being sick and the going to the doctors. Like there were some weeks I'd have like 4 medical appointments in a week. It's taking up so much time, that it was a part-time job, and now I don't have that part-time job. I've got the part-time job that I get paid for. And even that, I'm talking about like trying to get more work, like do more work, because finally I feel well enough to. But there's so many things that I want to do around that. And it's just like observing myself in a way of like, oh, I get to do these things, and I get to make a plan, and then I get the plan, can happen because I don't get sick like the week before and then feel terrible, or I don't go there and like intending to have a great time and then just shout at someone. It's um it's a weird feeling, and something to get used to, of having this kind of life that for other people is so ordinary,
Mm.
but I never got to have before.
Yeah. This is a part of the healing PMDD conversation that not very many people get to have because they haven't
Yeah.
experienced the transformation that you do. And when you come out of my program, that's something like you're saying we talk about is that when you feel better, you can see how sick you were. You don't know how sick you were until you feel
Oh God,
better.
yeah.
And
No.
there's a lot of joy and celebration attached to that, but the grief will hit of the reality of the two selves and what you went through. And now you can see it so clearly because you can live your life
Mm.
in a new way and you're not being held back. And It's a beautiful pain. It's a beautiful growing pain.
Mm.
And it's a
Yeah.
testament to how far that you have come to be able to feel that. Not everybody gets to reach that place. And so even that place, which we talked about, even when you hit that place and it can feel hard, that is something to celebrate because again, it's another signpost of how far you have come to even be at this place where you can recognize like, wow, I have enough time now. I can actually get another job because the amount of time I was spending trying to heal myself and survive was
Mm.
taking up like 30 plus hours a week of my time, you
Yeah.
know? It's so
Yeah.
wild. So
And
wild.
it's like the job that I get paid for, like I'm really, really good at because I get to like actually do it now.
Yeah,
There's
something
just,
that's
yeah,
tied
so
to
much I've been able to do. So, buying a
such
little
a,
house, like
yeah.
it's all happening.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's so beautiful to see because people through the process come out with different things, right? One of my clients bought a house in Germany with her partner. She never thought she could do that. Another is starting a yoga studio when she couldn't work for years because of the symptoms. Another started canning and, you know, is really into canning. She's like, I have all this time now. I just don't know what to do. So I'm
Yeah, I
canning. And
know.
she sends
It's
me a
so
jar of
weird. It's like,
applesauce.
what do you do with all this time that's not like wasted on feeling terrible or trying to sort out feeling terrible? It's such a weird thing. I was just like, it's very quiet.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And amazing. Such an incredible and inspiring story, Alex. Would you like to hear some of the quotes you said
Oh yeah.
in our last session in February?
Mm.
Okay. I highlighted them here. There are so many. I can't even read them all. There are so many. Um,
I
it
do talk a
was
lot.
amazing. Let's see. I've had the best health I've had in years.
Still relevant.
I feel that my mind is now in my control.
Still relevant. Yeah.
I've never felt that I could be proactive in my life. Now I want to make plans, show myself that I can follow through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like me most of the time now.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
I've never had consecutive months without severe symptoms, and I'm into my third now.
Yeah. I think I must be on like 10 now.
I've never not had depression, suicidal ideation, mood swings, and hopelessness.
Mm, yeah. I just do not have that. I have like sad days and sometimes I might have a little cry in the toilets, but like, just like a normal level. But,
Yeah.
mm,
I don't feel like I have to hide parts of myself anymore.
no, no. That's a weird thing of like, yeah, another reconciliation of your own personality of like it's almost like oh, I am this loud and big, you know.
And this might be my favorite one because it's a motto for everything else that has transpired in your life. You said, "I thought this was an unachievable dream."
Mm, yeah, yeah. It's funny. Like, I don't even remember saying that, but yeah, honestly, it was. I could not imagine not having it. It was just completely outside my capability to imagine a life without it, and it's almost like I can't properly remember. Like stub your toe, it hurts, but the next day you can't remember what the pain is. It's like that. I can't really remember it happening, but I just can't feel the pain of it anymore. Yeah.
It's amazing the human body and the human psyche is so fantastic that you can endure severe suffering for decades.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then you can very rapidly start to heal it, and then you just kind of forget
Yeah.
how bad it really was, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
that's beautiful.
it's an extreme experience. Like most people don't go through this, and I think I felt like the way I felt was normal, and I didn't really realize it is not. It's very far from that. And anybody who has it and is, dealing with it, it is really extreme, but also I think even if you're just moving forward day by day, that's an enormous achievement.
Yeah.
So, I think it shows that you like just the resilience and the resources that you have within yourself. And that's the weird thing. We talked a bit about the weird gift at one point of like, you go through something that extreme and actually you can then see how great you are, you know, from it. But it's not a great way to learn that. But a lot of people don't get to learn it. And it's almost, they almost miss out because of it. I don't think I'd ever choose to have been this way, but it's informed so much of my life and how I work in a field where I have to be like really deeply empathetic, and I don't think I could do it without this. So it is that weird gift.
It is. It's shaped who we are, and it, even
Mm,
through the healing process, has shaped who we have become. And that's at a point something you have to make friends with
mm,
and see for what it is. So it's so exciting a year later, Alex, to see you
I know.
thriving like this. I mean, I just can't even sit still here. I'm gonna have to do some breath work after this. Before we wrap up, what would you like to share with the community? Any wisdom, any message of hope for others who are, say, where you were, 16 months
Mm,
ago, feeling like this is who you are, there's no way out, you've already
yeah.
tried everything.
Mm.
What can you share with your past self or with the people in that situation now?
Um, I think just even knowing what it is such a massive thing. That's is massively helpful, but also means that you're at the start of something again. You get the diagnosis, you're at the end of that bit, and then something else big starts. So that is really hard. But I think if someone has ended up seeing your stuff, um, then there's definite hope, and there's so many things you can do, and that is probably the most useful, like, use of your time and money is to do this, because I tried everything else, and I know everybody's body is different, and maybe some people have tried some of the things that I didn't know were for them, but if you feel like nothing is working, then this works. It totally works. I don't think there can be many, because I remember you saying that I was quite a bad case, and I hadn't really thought that. I thought, oh, this is just what happens to people who've got this. But it had gone on so long, and it was really severe, and I honestly did not believe it could change, but it can change, and it's in your hands to do that, which is feels like a weight, but actually it's really precious, because feeling like taking that power back is what's going to make the difference.
It's such a good piece of wisdom and so much empathy too, to be able to say, yes, it can feel like, this isn't happening to everyone else. My neighbor doesn't have periods that make them want to die. My sister doesn't. Why is this happening to me? Right? We feel very victimized by these symptoms. And then that perpetuation, we just get beat down and beat down the
Mm,
more we
yeah,
lose to the condition. But really stepping into your power and learning like you're the only one that can heal yourself. You might need some help,
mm,
but that makes you unstoppable, and that makes you start to feel undeniable, because if you can heal suicidal ideation, if you're not experiencing suicidal ideation for 12 months now after experiencing it for 30 years, like
mm.
you start to think, what can I not do? That seemed,
Yeah,
like you said,
yeah,
unachievable. If you achieved that,
yeah,
now you're asking day after day, I've seen you over
yeah,
the last year,
yeah,
what can I not do? And
yeah,
that is a power, that is a priceless, there's no amount of
yeah,
money that can provide that
yeah.
level of autonomy for you.
Yeah, it's like every day I feel more confident about myself and like more sure about myself in a way that I just couldn't before, because I was so afraid of the judgment. And it's an incremental process. It's not quick. I don't wake up one day and I'm like, I'm the best person in the world. I mean, I'm never going to be like that, but it's I feel more sure in myself, because I know which, I know that's me in there now. There's nothing, there's no little alien trying to bust up my chest. um, but yeah, it's so much easier to kind of ground into myself. And one of the things I've been working on the last few months, particularly, is like really feeling my own, like trusting my own intuition, because I think getting that trust back in yourself is one of the really major steps of, once the symptoms subside, is learning how to trust yourself again and trust how you feel about yourself, because you spend so much time hyper vigilant and reading everything about you, but not feeling your feelings so much. It's just like scanning the whole time. I over intellectualized, everything. It was like watch everything, report everything, and just coming back into, feeling what I feel, and like recognizing my own take on myself, my own intuition, and trusting myself is like the next big thing that I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting too, because you come to me, right? All of my students and clients, they come to me and they're like, I just want to feel better. Just help me feel better. Help me reduce the symptoms. And I'm like, girl, I got you. I can help you do that. That is my job. No question about it. I can help you reduce and manage your symptoms, but that is not what this is. That's what you're here for. That's what draws you in. But what you uncover through the process of healing PMDD, and we're not talking about curing, right? We're talking about reducing and managing symptoms, is so much bigger. And that's what, when we're suffering and we're just reaching for a lifeline, we can't see. I just want to reduce my symptoms. Okay, do you know what's coming after that? Because it is a life transformation that is so much bigger than feeling better. It's
Yeah.
becoming the person that you want to be. It's working towards your dreams that you thought were impossible. It's believing in yourself for the first time in your life. Like those are, whew, sweating,
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
not, I have less bloating and cramping and my boobs aren't as
Yeah.
swollen, right? We're like not messing
Mm.
around here. It's a big, big deal.
Yeah.
And that's where, when I send you off after the 4 months, I'm like, please know that there's more coming. There's more to this journey than you just reducing and managing your symptoms. It will continue to unfold. And so it's been so beautiful to see how that has happened for you. And I'm so grateful for you to include me and trust me in your healing process, to show up and to see how your life has transformed is so exciting and so inspiring and so fulfilling, and just
Mm.
keeps me motivated to continue helping others, because this is what it's all about. It's not about
Yeah.
having less symptoms. It's about changing your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've done that. You've been a big part of that happening. Like, I honestly, like, it wouldn't have happened without you. So thank you.
Mm. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. Really excited to share this with the community and to continue connecting with you and see where your journey takes you.